Hello class. Wanted to go over some explanation for chapter 2 using our PowerPoint slides. There is a lot of material in chapter 2, a lot of tax credits that we need to talk about. And so this podcast will be broken into two pieces. So this is part 1. So let's get right in here. So in chapter 1 we went through up to calculating taxable income. Now we're going to calculate the tax liability. We have to have taxable income already done. We use two different ways. Either if taxable income is less than $100,000, you have to use the tax table. In your textbook, that's at the back of your textbook. Those that are over $100,000 are use the tax rate schedule. That's the beginning or the front of your textbook is the tax rate schedule. So just a little bit about how these work. The highest tax is if you are married filing separately. Lowest is married filing jointly, which also includes those qualifying widowers. So how to use the tax rate schedule. So income is $150,000, so we have to use that schedule. We can't use the tax table. You'll find the tables look just like this in your book. You find your income on the range. So the $150,000 falls within the 91 to 191 range. Then the tax that they owe is going to be the $18,713 plus 28% of the amount over 91.9. So take out the 91.9, multiply that by the tax rate, get the amount, add it to the amount from the table, and the total is their tax liability. So that again starts with taxable income. Tax table is a lot easier to use, doesn't take as many steps. For those under $100,000 of taxable income, it has to be used. All you need to know is their income and the filing status. Remember that married filing jointly is the same as qualifying widower. So you see the arrows are pointing to the number based on their income. Notice it's a range. So there's going to be some difference because between the tax calculation using the tax rate and the tax table. If you were to use a tax rate table like in front of the book for something under $100,000, you might come to a slightly different answer. So you can see the different amounts based on the filing status. And just like we talked about earlier, there is. See, if there were two people married filing jointly and their income was each of that, you can see that that would be the highest. And while single person married filing separately is the highest tax. In this case, it's exactly the same as single, but sometimes it will actually be higher. Okay, that gets us to credits. Now, you can't calculate or look at really tax credits until you have your tax liability, because tax credits reduce tax liability. They don't reduce taxable income. They don't change your AGI or any of your income numbers. They only change how much you actually have to pay. So we have two kinds, non-refundable and refundable. You can see there the difference. One can get you to zero but cannot result in refund, and the other can get a refund. There's a list of the non-refundable and refundables. Notice that the non-refundable is much longer. So the way to remember is just remember those things that are refundable, and then everything else is non-refundable, right? That's the easier way. So you get a credit for the amount you pay in of your federal taxes. If you overpay any money you have withheld from your check. Now, Notice this is a credit, not a deduction. Any taxes you pay from your check by your employer, any of that does not change your income. That means that when you file your tax return, you're going to use the gross off of your, and that's what's going to show up in your W-2 is the gross income. None of the taxes taken out or reduce the amount of income you report. But the amount you pay to the federal government is going to be a tax credit, meaning it's going to reduce the amount of liability you have. Same thing if you have excess withheld for FICA because you have 2 jobs and you make a considerable amount of money. That's not going to happen very often, but if it does, that could be applied to your income tax. Foreign tax credit is for taxes that you pay to some other country. So if you earn income in another country, you pay taxes there, you'll get a credit in the United States for the taxes you would have paid if it was here. And then if there's a difference, you would pay the difference. Child dependent care credit, much more complicated. This is for those who have someone in their home that needs to be taken care of, watched, or have somebody with them while they go to work. So you have to have it as married, you have to file joint return. So this is a penalty for those filing separately. They cannot do that. Here's what it means to have a qualified person, qualifying child under 13, but we expanded that to those that may be dependents but are unable to provide self-care. So it could be your father or mother that lives at home and needs someone to look after them while you go to work. So that type of thing. Or if you have a spouse that's unable to take care of themselves. So the dependent care credit, the tricky part, and there's a video about it as well another podcast, but it doesn't matter how many kids you have, it's only a $6,000 limit will be considered. So you always notice this is the lesser of these 3. So you always take these 3 and take the lesser, okay? Qualified expenses is what you pay to the babysitter or to the place that provides care. There is some limits to who you can pay. If there are other dependents, it's not going to qualify, so you can't pay your 16-year-old to watch your 10-year-old, okay, and have that work, okay? Notice it doesn't matter how many. If you have 4 kids, you still can only have 2 or more you can only have 2 qualifying persons. There's still a limit of $6,000. If you get any reimbursement from your employer, that has to be reduced. Both of those $2 amounts. When they are married, filing jointly, the earned income of the spouse with the lower amount of earned income is used. So you take both of them on the form and you look at the person that makes the less. So somebody has to make money in terms of employment for this to work. And if they are going to school, we have an idea of deemed income where it's $250 a month for one, if you have one qualified person, $500 for more than one. This is not actual income, it's just deemed income. They are pretending as if they had gone to school, that they were actually earning, so that if one spouse is working and the other spouse is a student, this could still apply, all right? So, a couple of examples here. Here's our qualified expenses. We have 3 children. Her earned income is $22,000. $4,200 is the lowest of the 3, so that's what you would use to calculate your credit. This is only one child that needs to be watched. Mr. Judd has an income, but Mr. Judd is going to school for 9 months of the year, so that's 9 months times 250 because there's only one. And this is a pretend income. Do not put it in as income on the return somewhere. All right, it is not actual taxable income. So that is the lower of the three, so that's what you would use to calculate your credit. Credit is a percentage based on your AGI. Notice that there's no limit, meaning you could be a millionaire and your percentage is still 20%. So it goes down as your income goes up until it hits 20%, and then it stops going down. It's the same for everybody after that. Okay, so this is the example with the 54,000. You take the 2250, multiply by 20%, and you get the credit. A little bit about how this form works. Where you calculate the lesser of the three amounts, like we talked about, multiply by the percentage, compare it to the amount of your tax liability from your 1040 to make sure that your credit is not more than your tax liability, because remember, it's non-refundable. Higher education credits. The tricky one is American Opportunity Credit, which is the best one, the one you want to use if you can qualify. 40% is refundable, 60% is non-refundable. LLC is all non-refundable. So American Opportunity Credit is $2,500 maximum. So the most that you consider in your tuition paid is $4,000. $2,000 is 100% credit, and then the next $2,000 is 25%. But the max it can be $2,500, and it gets phased out if your income is too high. And there's your phase out ranges: $20,000 for married filing jointly, and $10,000 for married filing separately. So we find that they paid $7,700. We know that that's more than can be even considered. Okay, $2,500 is the maximum. So 2,000 times 100%, 25% of the next 2,000. So that's 2,500. He's full time. He hasn't done 4 years, so that qualifies for the AOC. However, it is going to be phased out because their income is over the 160,000. So you look at the percentage that they are over the 160,000 out of 20,000. Now, if once they get to 180,000, they're completely phased out. But you can see 172 is kind of in between, and so they're going to lose 1,563 of their credit of the 2,500. Now, once you've done that, the 40-60% split still applies. 40% is refundable, 60% is non-refundable. So depending on what their tax liability is, they may lose some of that non-refundable if they don't have enough tax liability. But the 40% for sure will be refundable. Okay? Lifetime learning credit. Notice this is per tax return. The AOC is per tax payer. So if you had multiple children going to school in the first 4 years, you could have more than one eligible, and you could use the credit from more than one student. Lifetime learning credit is limited per tax return. So this is for all my whole family on my tax return. So it's 20% of 10,000, much less dollar amount and much lower percentage, phased out earlier as well. Okay, and remember, they have to file a joint return to have the education credits. So notice there's $2,000 phased out because he's married filing unmarried taxpayer. So again, it's in between the 56 and the 66. So part of it's phased out, 1,044. He gets the remaining credit. These are all reported on the form 8863, and you see the way that that's filled out, giving the opportunity credit and the lifetime learning credit at the bottom. You can see the calculation of the refundable part as well.